ever closer to the edge. A lunatic's kiss of peace. Part 1, I studied the classics, not as popular as they used to be. She has eyes only for me. That blush of ancient maidenhood, it all but takes my breath away. She murmurs, I mumble, I mutter, I stutter. She whispers, what is it that you want from me? The tension is all but unbearable. A beggar at the feast, dumbfounded at the gourmet's table in the lap of the gods, whose napkins are already so stained and soiled with the blood from so many ancient consummations. Gluttony without grace, spilling their unnatural seed all over the place. It all but takes my natural breath away. I flirt with phantoms, and there's a price to be paid for flirting with phantoms, desiring the sun and the sun only. Give me the sun, mother, denying the moon its fact as fiction, my own bronzed hero in a common humanity that pales in comparison, slaves to their passions, narcissists drowning in the same pool of yearning, not to dance alone in this dance of death to a lonely demise. She has eyes only for me. She sees me here below. I mask my meaning, but she sees me from the rooftops of her earthly Olympus. She sees me in her blindness, and she hears me deftly imagining the horrors of prophecy. And she speaks in a dumb show of words that nobody listens to, only to pay no mind, for she is mad, Cassandra, poor Cassandra, a slave to no reason, a trophy of war with shadows for eyes. She shall be traded in blood, paraded in triumph, humiliated in the closets of a house already dressed for blood, the skins of death draping its walls. A man's own wife shall prove the worm at the core of a husband's glittering ramshackle show of glory. See, she sees her stick him to the bone. Choose a lover, choose a slave, murder a husband, murder a mother. Humanity on its gory chase, to bite off its own tail, till the bleeding stops the flow of kindness forever. It is her fate to predict our end. Blood poisoning its own blood, the gods are furious. And the modern hero must prove a being of ancient peace, or fashionable self-slaughter may be the only show left worth watching over. I read somewhere that self-destruction is the best form of self-defense. If I fear, I disappear. If I disappear, I have nothing to fear. If there is nothing left of myself to terrorize or destroy, structureless indestructibility. Is pure energy light or dark? If both are invisible to the naked eye, no target to aim at, leave that pile of rubbled nothingness alone. Let it rise from its own nonentity's ashes, if it must, if it can. If fate is truly with us. Unless fate is truly the doom-laden destruction of anything remotely pretending to be actively civilized, human, or natural. I speak only what my madness compels me to speak. Abandon hope, all ye who enter into this nut house. I open my mind, and it escaped me. The verdict is in, no closing argument. I rest my case, I admit everything. Only a lunatic would do that, but isn't confession good for the soul? Perhaps my soul is still intact. Only my mind fractured, my heart shattered, my body pierced to the bone, infection set in, and there's no cure for it, only palliation of the symptoms. A pharmaceuticalized product of my own, or somebody else's deranged failings. I admit everything, and having nothing to hide can leave one so vulnerable to prophecy and prosecution, if only for lack of foresight. Far more passion in secrecy, active bonding potential in shared guilt, innocence for babies and animals, wild or otherwise. There's a certainty to guilt beyond unreasonable doubt, to avoid prosecution at all costs. Only the guilty are willing to sacrifice innocence on the altar of survival at all costs. collateral damage par for the course. Let's face it, some people can get away with murder. Remember Thermopylae? An overwhelming force undermined by its own mythology had to put history on hold, take the long way round, a victory whose glory belonged only to the ones who lifted not one finger in their own defense, only to point everyone else in the right direction to their fate. By the time history reappeared into our history books, it had been thoroughly transformed, revisioned, revised, curricularized into whatever the publishers needed us to know if we really want to get ahead in this world. Remember Thermopylae? I do. All the damn time. As if I was actually there and suffered some seriously classical PTSD. There's a presence in my room. Not human, inhuman, from another dimension, a phantom fox in my henhouse, a shape-shifting lizard in my woodpile, a real ghoul in my ghost train. Nothing is what it seems to be, and neither is anything else. If a man can maneuver this world only in phantom fits and starts, I speak only what my madness compels me to speak. Let's face it, all the best genii went mad. Makes perfect sense to speak for God in a godless world, a God who must have absolutely everything on his mind, but blessed with no body to have to carry its weight, to demonstrate how he got to be God in the first place. Perhaps he needed to experience himself in process. Too many tropes to need to admire, too much excellence to feel incapable of living up to, an inferior breed of superior beings racked with a self-consciousness that must go beyond the pale. The king is mad. He commands only the dust to defy its own nature. I shall take beauty into my heart and make a whore of it, a war of it, a battle to my own demise, freely, willingly leaping into the abyss to the lingering, longing refrains of immortality. She has eyes only for me. I see her there, on the wall of my cell, etched in chalk dust. The only medium allowed, a lunatic, melts in the mouth, utterly erasable, impermanent as random flotsam on the shores of Atlantis. My Pallas Athena, the owl and the spear, wisdom and prudent self-defense. My guiding goddess, she shields me from unheroic despair. No blushing petticoats to hide behind my red-breasted, white-skirted, grafted, graven image of defiance, her unspoken words of love are battle cries, putting my lowly, lily-livered poesies of loss and desolation to shame, or to the sword if needs must. Put me on a pedestal, I will merely recite Shakespeare. If by thy heart, my dearest father, thou hast put this world in such disarray, I paraphrase my soul's contribution to any cultural backlash. I shall kneel at her feet and kiss the wall she doesn't walk upon, chalk dust on my lips, the remains of the day. It passes the time here in delirium, fiction as fact, fact as fiction. Only the facts have been changed to protect the apparently fictitious. Remember Thermopylae? Hardly a one-off occasion, a hero in time, saves 9,000 in cowardly retreat. But I digress. Are there bars on the window or only in my mind? Should I now continue in a more rational vein back to the real world, experience the real world and get sick from it? Inshallah, where there's a will, there's a way in before the prize fighter, rumbling in the jungle, in the red corner, slings and arrows. In the blue corner, outrageous fortune. In the neutral corner, put money in thy purse. I shall take beauty into my heart and only give it back at a price if you really want to get ahead in this world. Part 2. A friend in Bedlam. My girlfriend paid me a visit yesterday. I believe it was yesterday. Time flies. When there are no seasons, only in the mind, just moments, one moment to the next moment, each moment slipping or crashing into the next moment, flatlining any momentousness. I told her she was very, very brave to enter into the monkey house. With all her peanuts intact, her face in full flower, she needed to beware of bee stings, mischievous chimpanzees, the ides of marching hares and maddening hatters. She brought me a book to occupy my already too preoccupied mind. She brought me a book, but not just any book, not just any old book, a play, but not just any old play, a play about a man who goes mad. How very considerate, I thought. But not just any old man, a king, no less. I thanked her profusely for her consideration, though privately I would have much preferred a little smut, a bit of porno, to revive my bodily fluids without arousing any brain cells. Too much education is not always a madman's best friend. In mental cases, to go mad literally is small consolation to the dogs at war with the bitches who wave them off into battle. Girlfriends, wives, and mothers have a lot to answer for. Boyfriends, husbands, fathers just keep begging the question, what is it that a man has to do? A woman just needs to keep giving birth to a man's necessity. She looked like a picture postcard from my past, so pretty, so sweet, so neat and tidy, her own mind so far from smut it wouldn't even recognize itself on its way back from the convent of a juvenile's erotic fantasies. I am not the boyfriend she once knew. I'm not even the boyfriend I once knew, to prefer smut to Shakespeare. I've come a long way. Perhaps I opted for the wrong major. If I really wanted to get ahead in this world, and is that what I didn't do right? Is that what somebody else did wrong? My parents, my grandparents, my great-great-great-grand ancestral rootings in some shaky ground not tilled till they ploughed it themselves? Is there anything worse than being aware you're in a nut house? Is there anything worse than not being aware you're in a nut house? Is there anything better than not needing to be aware of anything, always catching oneself unawares? Truly, a life of revelations not to kill oneself for, or anyone else for that matter. I doubt she will return, unless it's to wave me off into battle. I no longer remember a time I wasn't trying to shock myself, to keep myself awake, make me feel alive, electrify. Dysfunctional static doesn't always go down well in polite circles, always being impolitely disrespectful of anything not shocking in this all too often caught napping world. In truth, no one is shockable here in delirium. Incivility, par for the course. Just give it to me, you holy, unholy motherfuckers. Whatever it is, we are well prepared for madness. Our minds clouded by the mists of Avalon. Eternity and chalk dust on our lips, begging no reproach for our bastardizations of anything remotely resembling divine purpose. The demon sees the sacrilege. I do have a friend here in Bedlam. My Mexican compadre confrere, Ramirez, a fellow traveling monkey in our nut house. I believe he despises me. I believe the despicability is mutual. It bonds us, bordering on bloodlines. We have absolutely nothing in common except our alienation from polite circles. He's utterly demented, capable of anything. If he wasn't in here, he'd probably be in jail. He dreams of being a gangster rapper. Though he did stop wearing the sympathetic baggy pants with the revealing underwear, he said, as soon as he was told it was actually a jailhouse signal that your ass is on the loose and home for business. He's convinced he's possessed by demons. Simply has no choice but to go along with the devil's flame flow, because his daddy, his padre, may have been bona fide El Paso Mexican, but his mama, pure Black Island voodoo girl with juju in her bones and zombie blood in her veins, been raped by so many demons so many times she don't need no burlap sack over her head to know she's been well and truly motherfucked, and any spawn from a womb damned to unholy mischief. He knows too much, she tells me. He confides. Kabbalistically, he knows too much. And he's a bit too willing to spill the beans. The only reason he hasn't been taken out because he's not famous enough. Insufficient followers on Facebook taking him seriously. I sympathise. He's utterly enamoured of all this dark art, black mambo, black secret society, boule, Luciferian jive, fed to him by the reverend minister in his local parish. He keeps trying to teach me the secret hand signals. Should I really want to get ahead in this world, I need to let the commander-in-chief know I'm on the team, ready for initiation, getting fucked in the ass and parading around like some poor man's Cinderella in lipstick, rouge, bewigged and wearing apron or party frock, my choice. He's been battling this all his life. He's a hero in my book. And though he never studied the classics, he swears one day he's going to rip my eyes out of my head so I can see this world for what it truly is, a satanic magic show. A holly wand mirage, a mesmerizing spectacle of celebrities, superstars, movie stars, sports stars, the occasional politician, the phantom foxes in the hen house, the shape-shifting lizards in the woodpile, the real ghouls in the ghost train, the gatekeepers from hell, keeping everybody else from getting to heaven. I paraphrase interpretively on his behalf. Behalf of me does, behalf of me thinks he may have a point. At least he has an explanation. Which is more than I do, eh? I'm just some dumbass, overeducated, privileged white kid from some upscale suburban somewhere or other who'd consider he had a breeding problem if his greyhound bus didn't turn up on time. I humbly bow to his demonic insights, and I cherish his depraved fellowship, and I trust we will wrestle 6 rounds again sometime soon. It'll turn up unannounced, but utterly inevitable. We both need that muscular release of bodily tension, our minds in such clinical disrepair. I think too much, he tells me. I think it does inhibit activity. My Mexican compadre confrere is not so similarly precluded, driven insane by this obsessive desire for something he knows he can never define. Give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. He cries out every night from his cell, relentlessly, remorselessly, fearlessly, without self-reproach. Give it to me, give it to me. Whatever it is, I humbly bow to his non-declarative wisdom. Maybe he just wants to be taken out, so he knows he made it big after all. At least a blip on Lucifer's radar. To communicate the incommunicable. To speak for God in a godless world in which the devil has been let loose to inform us that unholy mischief is afoot. Give him a foot, he'll take your whole backyard. Fuck you in the ass while you're so dipsy-doozy bent over, plucking daisies to ornament your vilest discrepancies. My bonkers son of a bold, wetback Spartan King Ramirez is the devil's demon after my own heart. I just have to keep him out of my arsehole. I keep him at bay with chokeholds. Though I know he would much prefer a more conventional, moisture-laden tryst with a skin and bony blonde Susanna in the female wing. But that not forthcoming, any portal in a storm, which is a euphemism for sodomy, perhaps a euphemism for not wanting or needing to breed any more fucking lunatics in this world. I say nothing I don't mean. And still, I mean what I say ultimately means nothing, which was once apparently a euphemism for cunt, itself a euphemism for gina, in the less clinical sense a euphemism for, hey, no collateral rupturing of the anal passage, thank you very much, which just brings us back to the original euphemism, a la Shakespeare. I love your nothing. I love your no thing. But nothing comes from nothing, so where the fuck does all that love go? Into nothing that really matters at all. How else to explain the relentless slaughtering of innocence? What a rogue and peasant slave he is to his undefinable needs. Just give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, whatever it is. Mercy, perhaps. He does cross himself whenever he pins me to the floor, a Catholic, pagan primitive to the unembittered end. The other day I pinned him to the floor. For the first and the only time I felt the all but irresistible terror and temptation to smash a man's skull in, for no other reason than at that moment I could. Of course I didn't. Apparently I'm not that mad. But he took it like a man. Any man who hasn't been beaten within an inch of his life at least once in his life is no hero in my book. Just a smug, cowardly asshole who deserves to be sodomized. What matters is how we walk through the flames, burning up before we just burn out. But was I meant to take a dive before my time? What profit a man to forfeit his future merely for profit? Oh, Charlie, I could have been a bartender. That guy can sure sling a mean gin slams and play it again and again and again and again. Memories are made of repetition, legends born from endless retellings of the same fictions that become facts in the mind, minds filled with facts and poetic farts that are really fictions, or vice versa. Without vice, would there be no challenge in this topsy-turvy facts and fart-riddled world? I speak only what my madness compels me to speak, though in truth, this is the sanest I've felt for weeks. If only I could bottle it, an elixir of homicidal withholding. And is that what keeps so many people so apparently clear-mindedly purposeful in this world? Withholding accountability for anything, if nothing really matters at all. Should I become some anonymous Mexican conscript bandolero at the gates of the Alamo, no longer the crooked or the Bowie interloper, besieged and overwhelmed by a much superior force, drowning in whiskey and heroism, no longer some ungeneralized Custer making his last stand against all those savages who couldn't seem to recognize civilization, even as it ran roughshod over their homeland plains. Perhaps we need to taste another's blood, to refine our own, become truly a part of the generally demonic blood and guts fest. I must seriously consider such channels of thought to withholding madness. Take the knee and make cowardly amends, atone for the blood guilt of my race. Since my ancestors' first protestations against dogma and transubstantiation and any sublimely fixed moral code of conduct, I need to know on which side my communion wafer is buttered at the expense of so many merely surviving on overgreased, undercooked, downtrodden margarine cakes. It's a thought. It's a thought for a nutty professor, trapped in the laboratory of his mind, conjuring up Frankensteins and golems galore with computers for brains. Press the right key and they will ransack the whole of civilization and not give it a first, never mind a second thought. We wrestle with our issues together, myself and my emboldened peasant lunatic wetback. He takes me out of myself, a pleasantly refreshing place to be. Muscle and blood, skin and bone, a man who can spit on a carpet and feel no shame, smear his excrement on the walls of his cell to let the world know he lives. Even if it refuses to look at him, it must at least smell his fucking waste. My name. But if I told you that, you might start to take this personally, and that might shatter your illusions. I know it shattered mine. I am no longer illusionary. I do not see things that aren't really there. I do think things that aren't really there. I do imagine things that aren't really there. But shouldn't everybody? I mean, if we all just thought and imagined exactly what we saw, interpretation would be a crime against common sense. To say anything at all would be a waste of time, my time, your time, language redundant. I could just point to something and grunt, and everybody would know exactly what I wasn't talking about. I know exactly what you don't mean. I was just not saying the same thing myself. But I digress from my digressions. Where was I? Where am I? And why am I not somewhere else? But what other institution would give me tenure now? I have a history, documentedly so. I have confessed my flirtation with phantoms to the world. And frankly, my dear, the world in all its digitalized generalities doesn't give a damn. And I sympathize with a world needing to closet its derangements. Who am I to posit discrepancies? Just give it to me. Give mental illness. It's as common as muck these days. Everybody publicly raking over their mental debilitations, encouraged to do so, commercially marketed as balm to the global soul, when royalty itself admits to the occasional dejection. Who am I to posit discrepancies? We should gather together and share our medicational needs, to keep us in line with the lunacy of our leaders, guiding us into a brave new world in which nobody gives a fuck who fucks who or what fucks what, so long as it turns up for work next morning, till eventually everybody is so fucked up we won't really need to fuck anybody else ever again. The future is ours not to need to see, the all-seeing eye leading the blind, just give it to me, give it to me. I am desirous of fulfilling only my most fundamental needs. Please, keep me upright and implant a laptop in my brain. We shall be immunized against frailty, vaccinated against doubt, quarantined against our own nature. Otherwise, atheist slaves to our syphilitic passions to an embittered end. We need to own our disease before it's too late. Or at least make light of our present darkness. I mean, how else to pass the time here in delirium? Switch on our appliance and gaze lovingly at the world in picturesque screensaver. Tap into eternal topicality. Breaking news, breaking through the breaking news 24/7. So many apps, so many channels to browse through, so much drama, so much light. Entertainment, it all, but takes your natural breath away. The tragedies and comedies of kings and queens, heroes and villains, superheroes, supervillains, psychopathic serial killers, rapists, child molesters, corrupt cops, corrupt politicians, corrupt comedians, clowns, telling jokes about their wife or their husband or whoever they pummeled into submission the night before, then apologizing on the global airwaves after it's gone viral on YouTube, begging forgiveness as ratings go through the roof. Give it to them. Give it to them, for God's sake. Give it. They're only human, just like us. Remember the Alamo. Remember the Alamo. We were all just kids then. Couldn't wait to grow up and become dead heroes. Since my ancestors first colonized darkest Africa, whipped the natives into civilized shape, blew the Chinese out of their own water, send in the gunboats. A little bit of opium's not going to kill anybody. I know all this. I studied this. The history of the civilized world. Abridged emancipation of edited editions. Speak it in black and white, and it shall become a child's colouring book. Painting by numbers in chalk dust, of course, should its editors demand revisions. I'm an educated man. I've lived a life of privilege. All men are not born equal. You'd think women would know that by now. Have you ever played golf? Have you ever hit a little white ball so high and so far you couldn't see where the fuck it landed? Hopefully as close to the hole as possible. Maybe that's what my Mexican bucket lister Ramirez is screaming out for every night, a hole-in-one. Can you imagine Pancho Villa playing golf? Che Guevara, Cortez the Killer, Genghis the Khan, Jesus the Christ, the first step to becoming an American. We have conquered the world, and I'm in a fucking nut house. The white man's burden, all that guilt alchemized into victory at all costs. The only way to prove it was all worth it being a euphemism for nothing left to lose, hearts, minds, and bodies gone astray. I would like to ascend to heaven, naked, unrepentant. Let the gods know I existed, if only for one fleeting, flickering length of chalk dust or candle wax. And thereby hangs a tale told by a certifiable idiot. Inshallah, inshallah. Where there's a will, there's a way in before the prize fight. Rumbling in the jungle in the red corner. Is this a dagger I see before me? In the blue corner? Out, 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 damn spot. In the neutral corner. Put money in my purse. If you really want to get ahead in this world. Part 3. O shapely melancholia. The gods were furious. Zeus couldn't keep him under control. It was giving him a headache. It was driving him mad till finally his divine dome burst open, and out popped what could be the answer to so many of his prayers to himself. The daughter he'd always dreamed of now dreamed up his Pallas Athena, the owl and the spear, wisdom and prudence, self-defense. A real bitch warrior goddess who wasn't about to take anything lying down, could put even the male gods to shame, or to the sword if necessary, and loyal to the semi-divine core, to her dreaming daddy's faith in himself, took a great weight off his mind. There was a Greek, a Jew, a Hebrew, and an Assyrian, quietly debating their differences of opinion over dinner, white wine, sautéed vegetables, when they hear this noise out in the street. A mob, a mass of humanity outside in the street, parading naked, beating on drums, ripping a goat to pieces and drinking its blood. I believe the stone has been rolled back, said the Greek. Not my problem, said the Jew. The Hebrew declined to comment. I'm Assyrian, said the Assyrian. The tomb is empty, said the Greek. Not my problem, said the Jew. The Hebrew declined to comment. I'm Assyrian, said the Assyrian. I know when something is no longer where it was put. We need to believe in something. They all sat together as Bacchanalia raged and raved on through the streets, up onto the hillside, naked, fornicating, banging on drums, ripping goats to pieces and drinking the blood, worshipping the gathering storm clouds that would drip manna and semen into their laps, fertilizing nothing. Humanity has gone mad, said the Greek. Not my problem, said the Jew. The Hebrew declined to comment. I'm Assyrian, said the Assyrian. Were we not all Hebrews once? I'm sure the Aborigines have a word for it. Unfortunately, I am not an Aborigine. What matters is how you walk through the flames. Without needing to fake, you're not getting burned up. Inshallah, inshallah, where there's a will, there's a way in before the prize fighter. Rumbling in the jungle, in the red corner, goats and monkeys. In the blue corner, the beast with two backs. In the neutral corner, all together, aren't we all in this together? The oracles have spoken. The owl hooted its pagan wisdom, wise enough to know its own nature may be on the line, could finish up a corporate hologramic logo, and human nature put to the sword of Damocles. I studied the classics, Google it. The human spirit nailed to the devil's double cross. I may look like an angel. I have been to the top of the mountain. I took you with me, remember? I showed you my dream. The whole world, ours for the taking. You and me, JC, we can rule over it together. I just need you to learn a couple of secret hand signals so I know we're on the same team. I made you an offer. I didn't think you could refuse, but you did. Prefer to get crucified, fair enough, different strokes. I'll just have to find myself another Antichrist. But I warn you, should you decide to return for a second coming, you're not even going to recognise this place. I'm going to do a major corporate takeover. So unless you're very high-tech Wi-Fi nanoparticle 5G savvy, with a bevy of shape-shifting lizards and hot, half-naked Madonnas on your payroll, you're gonna have one hell of a time convincing everybody you'll come back to save them and not just spoil the fucking fun. They don't even know I exist. Never mind you and your dad. Thus spake Zarathustra. Nietzsche has a lot to answer for. No more a humanist than a nudist and a naturalist. No more than Darwin was a novelist, though they both told a hell of a story. Enlightening humanity into godlessness. Do what thou wilt, and so wilt I. And may the best wilt win. Whoever wilts last is not the sissy. It's kill or be killed. Survival of the fittest or the smartest. Get with the program. The new world order of the jungle. Sometimes I think the original jungle may have been a less fear-filled, disease-ridden, dangerous, paranoid place to be. The noble savage, less of a myth. The Garden of Eden, a hell of a lot more than a picturesque screensaver. Inshallah, where there's a will, there's a way in before the prize fighter. Rumbling in the jungle. In the red corner, a thankless child. In the blue corner, a serpent's tooth. In the neutral corner, the Prince of Darkness is a gentleman. I would rather reign in hell than serve in heaven. Humanity in virtual purgatorial collapse, disintegrating into pixelations of its once and future self. Perhaps a fleshy insurrection, maybe I'd only hope. To put Ramirez pit stains to work, the stench of profusely popular passions, indispensable in any fleshy insurrection. My juju-born, zombie-blooded noble savage would-be gangster rapper shall emblazon and embolden our humbly depleted tribe of lunatics to take over the asylum. And I shall ride shotgun on my bonkers wetback's broad-shouldered crusade to demonstrate once and for all that it is brawn, not guile, that will bring the wretched of the earth up off their knees in solidarity with everybody else's knees to reclaim the righteousness of Shari's shapely melancholia. Sweet, sweet Shari, a picturesque mealtime interlude in Bedlam's drawers, my olive-skinned, green-eyed, raw-eyed princess, soul sister of the wounded Psyche, not angry, just sad. Let Mirrors rape Susanna if he must, if he can, she's a tough bitch. Let O'Connell rape his own resolution to resist, but Shari is here to seal my own fate. That moment I fold her in my arms, whispering sweet no endings to the no regretful sounds of silence steeping in a fragrant chai tea. I shall speak onions and leeks to my lady of Shalott, till it brings tears to her eyes, and moisture to her lips, and fornication to fruition. Because let's face it, the latter has so rarely been the first thing on my mind. I think I'd fuck 'em both in a heartbeat, given the chance. Susanna, with her tattooed eyelids, fear and death, and her teeth permanently interlaced with leftovers from her last supper, should she get hungry again between meals, and Sherry, committed simply for being sad, like myself, prone to an ancient dejection, which is a euphemism for classically tragical farce that seeks to exterminate the strong and drive the weak to suicide. Give it to me, no art for art's sake, but only in service to rid this world of its misunderstood nightmares and reclaim Susanna's eyelids. If she blinks, she'll miss one or the other, and one without the other is the all-seeing eye of Lucifer. If God blinks, he may miss his finest hour. As humanity rises up from its knees, the chains of tyranny and slavery falling jingle, jangle, jingling, loose to the good earth. We must never confuse torture and sacrifice with science, or science with an ingenuity that can trump divine genius. I do not love you nothing. It has given birth to everything I've learned to hate and despair of in this world. The rape, real, not metaphorical. But the sharpest knife must be one that kills. With kindness I shall yet die on the barricades, as Susanna sleeps and dreams, eyes wide open. Then we shall hold our tongues and let the silence steep, and madness and sadness shall never again be neutered into sickness. But who the fuck is O'Connell? I hear nobody ask. Another fellow travelling monkey in our nut house, an Irish brute, a slave to his passions, indispensable in any fleshy insurrection. As soon as we wean him off his doped-up ice cream fix, tap into those Gallic ideals so corrupted and buried beneath all that chemical shit in his brain, to rid his fair isle of those cow-fattened English interlopers, those damned heretic Protestants who would conquer the universe with Shakespeare's blessing. A man irresistible in his prime, a real cunt, makes Jay-Z seem like some dried-up vagina, closed for business, impenetrable, untouchable, celebrating only its own celebrity at the expense of a million other impossibilities, cowering, craven in their virtual dreams that can never really come true. If only Shari would kiss me and tell me she's mine to have and hold, if only for one night of bliss, so shapely melancholia. It would put revolution and desolation on hold. Only the Greeks can achieve Greece. Only the Assyrians Assyria. Only human beings. Humanity. If a woman can be committed insane simply for being sad, is it any wonder we resort to pixelations to estimate the true condition of this world and keep us from expressing it in any other way? There are great days in the offing, which is a euphemism for whatever hasn't happened yet. But of course, first we're going to have to write a grant proposal. Insurrections don't come cheap, fleshy or otherwise. Rebellion against tyranny does not come cheap. We're going to need state or corporate funding. Self-expression, unless you just want to talk to yourself all your life, doesn't come cheap. I'll say we need at least rental, insurance, lighting overheads, cast crew, union rates, promotion, marketing, T-shirts, tattooed mugs for sale at intermission, etc., etc., etc. And would it merely be in service to the state of my own mind? Enlightenment is overrated if it only leads to a good review and not to a kiss of peace. Art devoid of human and natural conscientiousness. Narcissus drowning in a pool of his own image again and again and again, to no end but despair and mediocrity. Tell that to Ramirez. Tell that to O'Connell. Tell that to the Marines on coffee break from Black Ops. Tell that to those 2 Cambodian orderlies payrolled to keep me in my place. We could hire half the world to kill or incarcerate the other half. But I forgive them. I forgive them for they know not what they don't know. But can I forgive myself for knowing what I do know and deeming it insufficient data to convince me there's so much more to discover in this life? So many, so young, yet already so weary of this world, so willing to fall asleep behind Susanna's unblinking eyelids, or wrapped in Ramirez's hot-blooded armpits, melted into O'Connell's doped-up ice cream fix. Not leaping into the abyss, not dying insurrection interruptus on the barricades, one single shot to the heart from a non-English speaking orderly who was simply doing his job, nothing personal. Unless of course Sherry decides she will kiss me after all, in which case all insurrectingly suicidal bets are off, or at least postponed till a less lovely moment. Just give it to me, give it to me, give it to rise in the morning with natural breath on my lips is purpose enough. The only thing separating us from our death is the end of our story. Let the endings continue. Let the stories begin again and again and again. Our men, our women. Ah, what a beautiful lesson in bliss this life should be, as the lights fade slowly to black, assuming we got the funding to afford it.